Hello, everyone. Yes, it's been a while, but my name's Ed, and today I'd like to give you a quick show of, or rather, the first development preview of Teyora and a progress update. So, for those who aren't aware, Teyora is my personal successor to Red Worn. So, as you know, I left the project in November 2021 and I was transferred to Clod. And Clod and his team have been working on Ultraviolet, which is their successor to Red Worn. Meanwhile, I've been doing my own project, which is Teyora. Now, Teyora, whilst it's a whole new thing in and of itself, I think the best way to describe it to somebody who hasn't seen it before um, would be that it's sort of a web-based alternative to Huggle. Um, so it can be used for counter vandalism, but of course it's going to be so much more than that. So at the moment, it's been in development for nearly 2 years. It started out as Red One React, which was the original um, what was meant to be the success to Red One whilst we're still there. So it's meant to progress everyone on. If there are any like OG Red One users, you might remember some of the surveys where we asked about the names and things along those lines. But this is a continuation of that. So that Red One React project has now gone into this, which is Teyora, and it's been developed by myself. Of course, it wouldn't have been possible without previous Red One team members. Um, but I've basically been working non-stop on Teyora for the past 6 or 7 months. Um, right, so let's get started. So this is the landing page in its present state. Of course, it's going to change because when it's ready for the beta test, there will be some actual content on there rather than just this welcome screen. But first thing we're going to do is click this big yellow button that says login with Wikimedia. So once we do that, we just have to click allow on this prompt. Now, that boots us into the first time setup. Because this is the first user I'm creating on this Teyora, it's going to make me the owner of this Teyora instance. So each, say somebody would want to self-host Teyora, rather than using, when it releases, it'll be on Wikimedia Cloud. If they wanted to have their own personal version, then they can do that. And as they will be most likely going to be the first one logging in, the first one to log in is automatically made the super overlord of Teyora, or that Teyora instance. And the super overlord is higher than everybody else, all the other permissions that every other user has. So it's right at the very top. Anyway, right, so first time setup. So we get a welcome, and it details the steps we need to do. So first we need to verify our eligibility. So Teyora, of course, this is all due to change based on, community consensus and depending on what happens during the development process and during testing, and just seeing what works. But it's mainly everybody who's at least auto confirmed, on any Wikimedia project. Of course, I might actually remove a couple projects that might be a bit too lenient on that front, um, which is fully possible. Uh, they can use Teyora and at least use it in a basic, limited, and monitored form. And then anybody with rollback and higher is eligible for something called auto approval. So that will mean that it will unlock everything for them, which we'll move on to the next one. Creating your profile. So that, of course, is for one thing I really wanted to get into Teyora is the community aspect. I feel like a lot of the time counter vandalism could be very isolating. Like you're just sat there ticking through a feed all the time. Uh, you know, often you only interact with the people you that are like complaining about what you've done, and I think it mainly like Wikimedia projects are community projects, and I don't want counter vandalism to be excluded from that. I think it's going to be a really good building block to have inside the tools themselves, that community aspect. So the purpose of profiles is so that you can express yourself. You can have a profile picture, a bio. Somebody stumbles across you whilst using Teyora, they could go, it's another Teyora user. I can leave them a talk page message, or this is about them. It just adds to that sort of community aspect. And after that, it's just optional steps. Two-factor authentication. I haven't implemented that into this build yet. Of course, that's less of a priority than actually getting it done. Um, so that's the point of two-factor authentication. Sandbox workspaces as well. So a workspace in Teyora is sort of like a box that has all your configurations, all your watch list, all your extensions that you might need, and all the different wikis and feeds, and they're all set on a workspace. The idea of that being is, say if you're patrolling copyright, then you'd want a different workspace, you'd want different extensions than to if you were patrolling uh, vandalism. And there's loads of possibilities with that. Teyora is extremely extendable. You can develop loads and loads of sort of extensions for it. It's also localizable, so if you click the language up here, you can change your language. There's a machine translated Spanish version in this build, so there you go. It's a bit broken because it's machine translated. So there we go. That's the Spanish version. I'll just go switch back to English. Right. Let's click next. So this is the warning about the super overlord that I was showing you before. So this is just warning you that you are the tippity top. I'm going to click OK. Right. So here we have a table of the Wikimedia projects we can access. So this is every single Wikimedia project. Now, when this is done, this will all be filled out. At the moment, because it isn't done, the actual showing what it supports is all blanked out. But if you hover over it, it'll tell you which features that Wikimedia project supports. So as we can see, the English Wikipedia supports ORES. But of course, by default, it puts in your language up here, so you have only projects in your language. But if you remove that, then you basically have every Wikimedia wiki, and you can just step through them all. If you select one that you're not present on, I'm guessing it'll probably be one like this. Of course, this is used for verifying your eligibility. It will not let you continue, so you have to actually be auto-confirmed or have rollback on a wiki. Now, because I have rollback, I am going to pop in English Wikipedia. There it is, and it will start to approve me, and there we go. So we are approved, and because we're the first user, we are a super overlord, and we are also an administrator. So first thing I'm going to do is set my nickname. So we can click on that, and you can set a nickname for yourself. So I'm just going to put Ed and the smiley face, and I'll click OK. And then I'm going to change my profile picture. So you have a number of profile pictures to choose from. Now most of these are temporary, of course, because it's a development version. I'm just going to check this one of the inside of a cooling tower. Right, and then we can fill in our bio, and I'll say, "Hello, I'm recording video about Teyora." I'll put smiley face. I like smiley faces. Let's click update. Right, and there we go. We're in. So that's all the steps to get started with Teyora. It's very simple. So, and of course, here we have guides. As soon as we go in, now these don't exist. This is just a sort of preview of what it might look like when it's done and in its completed form. So customization, learning with the sandbox workspace, and transitioning from Twinkle, Huggle, or Redwarn, or now Ultraviolet. So, right, let's go. So, this is our main screen. We're on the Workspace selector, this is called. So, this is like our main homepage. Up here, I can modify my settings. So, I can change my language, the theme and appearance. So, you have light mode as well as dark mode and some themes. So, I can choose monotone, for example, and I'm going to save and reload. That's the monotone light theme. Go into settings, its appearance. I could use red warning dark. There we go. And then I'm going to, but I'm going to set it back to the. I'm saying it back to the Teyora theme because that's the one I like. So yes, I click save and reload. Okay, so I don't have any workspaces at the moment, so none are listed. You can't create a workspace unless you are approved. So that means that you'd either have to seek approval from a Teyora administrator, or be rollback approved on any Wikimedia wiki. Uh, right, so we can click this create a new workspace to get started. So as we can see down here, we can join or create up to 100 workspaces on one account. This is because, of course, we want to make sure everybody can use Teyora, and if loads and loads of people start creating a bunch of pointless workspaces, it's going to get sort of unfeasible to handle. So anyway, we have the option to create a new one, find a community workspace, or join a private workspace. In this current build, the bottom two options don't work, but they will by the time that we start getting release candidates ready for everyone to try out. But I'm going to create a new workspace. So the workspace title, I'm going to put this in as my test workspace, and my workspace description, my super cool workspace. Create the new workspace, and there we go, that's listed. So it'll tell us when it's been last opened by us, and there's also the delete. Because we're the owner of this workspace, we can delete it, but if we had joined the workspace, we'd be able to just modify it or, leave it. Right, so I'm going to launch this workspace. There we go. So here we are in, and down the left side, we have a feed. Now, a lot of this is still temporary, and this is a very basic thing. As you can see, a lot of stuff is very much placeholder, like content will go here and actions to do. So in the finished version, down the right side, you would see information like the page history, what diff you're viewing, things like that. Up the top, very similar to Red Warn and Ultraviolet, we have action icons. So this is a demonstration of what it might look like if you were on a user page. If we click the Teyora icon, we can show or hide the feed drawer. If we click this icon down here, we can expand the jobs drawer. So in Teyora, instead of having to wait around for edits, they'll be done in the background as part of a job. So you can check the status of those down here. We also have the times in our local time zone and in UTC, so for Wikipedia. And then we would have what wiki we were on. So that's my username, ed6767 at, and then when we actually had something open, it would say, EN Wiki or Test Wiki. And then this is our current workspace. And then that's the number of jobs that we've got waiting, as we described before. So down here, I've got a debug button, which just shows an error, if a job had failed. That's just to test what that would look like. So if I click that again, if you're working and a job had failed, one of your edits didn't go through, then you'll be able to see the details down here. And then we have workspace settings and exit workspace. So the workspace settings haven't been integrated in this build, of course, because this is my first demonstration to you. Of course, I click the button, that doesn't work. Well, I'm going to click ignore. Right, so as we can see, this is our feed. We can switch between a compact view and this expanded view. So we're currently on the expanded view. If I pause it, so we have this tag here, so that tells us if it's a minor edit. This is the contributors edit count, good faith likeliness, and then the damaging likeliness. So these are both all scores. If you click on them, then it will describe it for you. That's damaging. And then if you prefer a more condensed look, then you can click this button and it will condense down all the edits. So if I click play again. Okay, so again, back up to the top. This is a user page and what it would look, or of course, all subject to change, but what it might look like in terms of the action buttons up top, just to give you a taste of the features you might expect in a release version of Teyora. So we have the edit page, so that would bring you into an edit view. We have the talk page button, so of course you could read the talk page and also comment. I'm thinking about building in something like Jack in the House's convenient discussions into Teyora itself. So you have sort of natural commenting like interfaces. Here we have the history, so that's when you click that, it will immediately take you into diff view, and then on this right side here, the history will come up, and you can use the arrow keys to step through or just manually click through them. Here we can edit our notifications, so this is to alert on change, similar to Red Warn and Ultraviolet. So if the page gets edited, there we go, that's the word I was looking for, then you'd be able to get a notification, be told that this edit has been made. Next up, send message, same as Red Warn, that's to write a new talk page message. This one is to welcome, so yes, Teyora of course will have welcoming built in for wikis that have it supported. If they don't have it supported, then it can be added, either by the community or by myself or anyone else who joins and helps with Teyora in future. Next up, we have modify rights. Watch editor now. Okay, so watching users is definitely a risky thing, and it is something that when it's implemented that will be highly monitored. So it'll only be for approved editors, and if it's there at all, of course, subject to testing, it would be where these things would expire after maybe 4 or 5 hours. The whole point of watching editor is for a vandal who might come back, rather than refreshing their contributions, you turn it on for 3 hours, and then it would expire, and then you could renew it maybe once or twice if it was still going on, but after that then you wouldn't actually be allowed to do it anymore. So the idea of that is to stop hounding, stalking, things that just aren't good, and abuse. And every single use of this watch visitor button will be monitored, but again, whether this is going to be here is subject to users testing, and if it's just one of these things where it's more harm than good. But moving on, warn user, same as Red Warn and Ultraviolet. Click on that, and then said down here, down on this actions tab, you'd be given the warn user option, and then once you've done that, it will add it as a job down here. And then down here, if you're an administrator, you can block. If you're not an administrator, you can report. Then you have manage page protection. So if you're not an administrator, you can request page protection. If you are an administrator, then you can protect the page. And then here you can either start a deletion discussion or just delete the page if you're an administrator. Of course, if on this button here, you can also make that, if you're not an administrator, that would be speedy delete on compatible wikis. So, right, what else is there in here? One of the last things that I'm going to show you in this build, down the left side. So as you see, edits are coming through at a steady rate. And if we open up here, then you'll see that some of these edits are coming in from, 20, 30 seconds ago. So this is part of a Teyora feature known as feed throttling. So this is to make sure that you can actually read all the edits coming in, and you're not just drowned out when a lot of high flow edits come in and you're just reminded every time, and it can get overwhelming. So the idea of this is that it makes sure that Teyora can keep going and not slow down and be responsive. And of course, for new users of Teyora, we want to make sure that they don't just zip through all the edits and things like that. But if you don't like it, you can always turn it off. There'll of course be more information on that. But if I leave here and return to my workspace selector, then I can hop into my settings, and you'll see in these performance options, I have options to change the minimum throttle time and the maximum throttle time. I can disable it. So if I disable it, I can give you a show of what that might look like. See when they start coming in. You see how they come in a lot quicker, and it's also a lot less even. So just from a sort of user experience point of view, it is easier and a lot nicer to have that sort of throttling where everything just sort of trickles in. But as you can see, Without that throttling, there is literally only 1 second delay. And of course, if there were less edits coming in, so if you set up filters, to only allow edits that had been detected as damaging or were by new users, then you wouldn't experience any issues at all. But because I've selected all English Wikipedia edits, there are going to be a lot. Now, what is supported in here? So this feed can support multiple wikis. So, if you wanted to patrol simple English Wikipedia and the English Wikipedia at the same time, you can absolutely do that. You can also set up multiple feeds down here. That won't be in this build, but sorry, that's not in this build. But you can add multiple feeds, and you can also set feeds. So here, this is from an extension which adds the live feed from Wikimedia's event source. But you can also add categories or your watch list, or even Teyora watch lists. So you can actually make watch list categories and watch list folders, or you will be in future builds. Which means that, if you have like a group of pages that you want to keep your eye on whilst you're also patrolling things, then Teyora will give you that flexibility. So yeah, I hope that has given you a look at what Teyora can do already. I know it might it might not look like as outstanding as it would be, but this is a first developer preview, so this is very much in an incomplete state at the moment. But I just thought I'd update the community that this progress is happening and there is this development still going on in the counter vandalism space. It's not dead, and I haven't just disappeared off the radar. But if you're watching this and you're interested, there is a page on MetaWiki where you can register your interest for future notifications, future messages about Teyora and anything like that. Okay, great. Well, if you have any questions, then you can leave them on my talk page or on Teyora's talk page, and I'll be sure to answer them.